Always trust.
We ask the question, what is needed in the world?
Mrs. Benjamina Karić, thank you for joining Center Stage and welcome.
Thank you very much. The pleasure is mine. Thank you for this amazing opportunity and honor to speak with you.
I would like to start with the start of the war in Gaza. Very early on in the war, very close to October 7th, you started very publicly advocating for Palestine, for the ceasefire. But this process has not been easy on you, and it somehow did come with a cost. So can we hear the story?
Of course, I'm the 39th mayor of Sarajevo and the second woman in the history of our city. I was elected to be a mayor 3.5 years ago. And from the very first beginning of my mandate, I was always very sure that Sarajevo is always on the right side. That Sarajevo, as a city, together with all citizens, is always on the side of justice. So during first months of mandate, together with people of Sarajevo, we gave a strong support to people of Gaza and to people of Palestine. We placed the Palestinian flag on our city hall because as a city who survived the longest siege in modern history, and as a country which survived aggression, we felt that we must be strongly with people of Gaza and people of Palestine. So before the 7th of October, we were on the side of justice. And when I say that we are on the side of justice, I say that we are on the side of Palestine. After October 7th, I felt very sad because as a mayor of Sarajevo, I gave, together with all different politicians from all around the world, I just thought how we gave the strong support to Ukraine, how we gave the strong support to Kiev, because Sarajevo suffered a lot. And I couldn't stop questioning why we are so quiet. Of course that we condemn Hamas attacks, but it's not justice. It's not just to condemn Hamas attacks and not to condemn everything what is happening to Palestine and Gaza before. It's simply not fair to say that victims of Ukraine or victims anywhere in the world are much more important than innocent victims in Gaza and innocent victims in Palestine. I decided to raise my voice, and I said that in this way. It's not just to condemn Hamas attack without being loud and without condemning what is happening to Palestine.
Can I just ask, what did you do? What was the first moment of your action for Palestine?
It was, the first action for Palestine was putting the Palestinian flag a lot of months before the 7th of October. So the support of Sarajevo and the support of people of Sarajevo lasts much longer. When I wrote that we need to be just and that we need to speak loudly what's happening in Gaza and what's happening in Palestine, it was 8th of October. Mm-hmm. And after that, a group of amazing Palestinian people who live in Sarajevo, they decided to organize a protest of support for Gaza and protests of support for Palestinian people. I received the invitation from our great friend and amazing Palestinian ambassador in Bosnia and Herzegovina, Mr. Namura. I remember I was sitting in my office and I called my mother and I said to her that a huge protest for Palestine and for Palestinian people will be organized in front of the city hall. And she asked me, "Are you ready?" And I said, "Yes, I will go." And she told me, "If you do not go, then you should not be the mayor of Sarajevo." And in that moment, I think that I will remember this sentence, and I will remember her voice whenever I think what is justice and what is fair to do. To be a mayor of Sarajevo, to be the youngest mayor of Sarajevo, and not to be just, it's impossible. Because in the eyes of Palestinian kids, I see my war childhood. In all innocent Palestinian victims, I see all innocent victims from Sarajevo and from Bosnia and Herzegovina. And it was not so far ago when Miss President Nataša Pirc told that somehow we feel that words never again are useless. I think also that now the only thing as a mayor that I could do, I'm not a politician from a state level, and my impact is not too strong. But we need to choose to be loud. We need to choose the right side, because if we are not just, we do not deserve to be on these positions. We do not deserve to lead our people.
You mentioned responsibility just now. Do you then think that those who were victims at some point, just like you were, just like the citizens of Sarajevo and the people of Bosnia were 30 years ago, is there a special kind of responsibility for those people, for those who already went through atrocities? Do they have more responsibility to act?
Absolutely, because we survived everything, and we saw how is to be and how is to feel alone. When I reacted, when I said that people of Sarajevo, and again, I always repeat people of Sarajevo, because it's not important who is the mayor. Mayor of Sarajevo and all other politicians should speak what the people is telling and what the people is thinking. And Motaz saw that when he was walking in the city of Sarajevo, you can feel the support for justice. Our people are people with a brave soul, with a brave heart, but they are just. And we need to spread the voice of our people. So as a mayor, I just spreaded the voice of people of Sarajevo. And when I was very loud, I had the advices of my colleagues, politicians from all levels, that I should not be so loud, because I'm just the mayor, I'm just the local level. And that I just remember one word: you should think about the interests of Bosnia and Herzegovina. And then I was thinking, but what are the interests of Bosnia and Herzegovina? And what would happen with us if all politicians around the world were thinking the same when aggression in Bosnia and Herzegovina was happening, when the siege of Sarajevo was happening? We will never forget our friends during the hard times. So it's simply impossible, and it should be impossible for all of us in Sarajevo, in Bosnia and Herzegovina, to be quiet. Because we survived, we learned a lot of lessons, and I'm sure that we can help. Sometimes it's not important how large your country is. Sometimes it's not important how rich country yours is. Sometimes emotions, and I would say the real support from heart is much more important.
So I want to go back to October and November. I want to go back to the first months of the war. When you started with advocating, we just heard you got some advice about your political career, about the interests of Bosnia and Herzegovina. What else was happening? Were there any other kinds of pressure?
I had the advisors to be much quieter because I cannot change anything. I didn't listen. Then I decided to speak and to talk during the protests in Sarajevo.
The first protest, right?
Yes, the first protest. And I had the information that I was among, in that moment, I was the only mayor of European capital who decided to speak loudly. I also remember some sentences that, because of that, it will be the end of my political career. But then I would go home, I would see my son, I would see my family, and I would say, okay, if giving support to Palestine is sin, I'm ready to be nothing. It's better to be nothing than to be unjust man. It's better to be nothing than to be a human. I had the pressure, my husband had the pressure, my family had the pressure.
Was it just pressure? Were there threats?
Yes, I had threats. I had police protection for my entire family, but I was not afraid. Because I think that if you are just, you are protected. The threats were very painful. I received photos of killed children. I received the threats that they will never forgive me, that they will never forget. But now, when some time passed, I just can say that I'm proud. I'm proud on people of Sarajevo. I'm proud on every single person who came here today, because I'm sure that in years which will come, people who were not just, they will be ashamed, and they should be ashamed.
Many people are, when speaking about this conflict in Gaza and about the war between Israel and Palestine and the conflict and all the past 75 years, they often go back to the beginning of the 20th century, saying that back then we had Muslims, Jews, and Christians living in a coexistence without too many problems. But maybe we don't have to go back to 20th century Palestine. We are in a place that is often dubbed as a European Jerusalem. So what lessons can we learn from Sarajevo, and is it really European Jerusalem?
When I talk about Sarajevo, and when I talk about our people, when I talk about our city, I always say that this is real pearl of Europe. This is real multicultural city. I say welcome to Sarajevo, to the city which survived the longest siege, but the city where, if you talk with mothers of Srebrenica, who have lost 7 kids, 7 sons, they will learn and teach new generations, and they will tell them not to hate. I tell to people who are first time here, welcome to Sarajevo, to the city where, during the Second World War, Muslim families saved Jewish families. There is one very famous photo from Sarajevo where a beautiful Muslim woman, Zaineba Hardaga, covered with her clothes, covered the yellow star on the arm of her Jewish neighbor. I always say, welcome to Sarajevo, welcome to the city where brave people saved Haggadah, the unique religious Jewish book. Dervish Korkut, the Muslims, saved it, and now we have it in our National Museum in Sarajevo. We live and we enjoy our diversities. Even after the siege and after the aggression, we are a multicultural society. And our city is a real multicultural pearl because we live our diversities every day. In just 100 meters in Sarajevo, you can find mosques, churches, and synagogues. And every day and every minute, you can feel how East and West are kissing in our city. You can feel diversities and you can enjoy them. If you walk in Sarajevo, you won't see any police officers protecting our religious places. You won't see any police officers protecting synagogue, protecting mosques, protecting churches. We live together, and I think that our multiculturalism is a real recipe how the future world should function.
So speaking of this recipe and speaking of the experience in the past 30 years, which took a lot of rebuilding, Sarajevo was heavily damaged in the war in the 4 years. What kind of lessons can the world, can those in power, take from Sarajevo, but not just Sarajevo? You mentioned Srebrenica, you mentioned Bosnia as a whole, surviving the aggression. What would you as a mayor send as a lesson to those that are now deciding on things?
I think that the new generations who are coming, the new generations in Sarajevo, the new generations in Bosnia and Herzegovina, and the new generations in the world should learn and should have all the facts during their educational system. I think that education is key. But also, we need to be brave. We need to speak. I was 1 year old when the war and when the siege of Sarajevo started. I was 4 when the grenade hit my home. But somehow, I was always very shy to talk about that, because it was a huge trauma. We need to speak loud, very loud. We need to talk about our experiences, and we need to write that, because new generations need to have knowledge. Without knowledge and without the true facts about genocide, about the war crimes, about the war criminals, we will create another space for the new crimes and for the new genocides. I'm sure in that. That's why I respect every single person, every single journalist, every single academician, every single artist which raise the voice strongly and bravely. Because without brave people and without well-educated people, this world would look totally different. I'm sure that we have great young generations, but we need to teach them how to love, and we need to teach them how to be just. When I was 7, I was in my primary school, and it was the period after the siege, and I remember I was at the first grade, And the kids asked me, what are you? They asked me actually in which religion, which religious group I belong. And I didn't know to answer. I returned to home, and my grandmother was there, and I asked her, I had the situation in the school, can you tell me what I should respond? She told me, whenever someone asks you that, you should say that you are a human. And then I returned to school, and I said, I'm a human. So I think that all generations who are coming, they need to be learned at the first thing that they are human, that they need to be good people, good, brave, and later well-educated people.
Mrs. Karić, we've mentioned both Gaza and Bosnia and what's been happening here. Maybe thinking about having in mind the comparisons between the genocide that's happening now in Gaza and the genocide that happened in Bosnia. Thinking about that, what kind of a message would you like to send to the people of Gaza?
For the people of Gaza, I will say that I'm sure that they will win in the same way that Sarajevo and Bosnia and Herzegovina won. I'm sure that justice needs to win, and I'm sure that good and just people in Palestine need to have their country, and that the new generations of kids in Gaza and in Palestine will have the brighter future. I hope so, that our future generations in Sarajevo, in Bosnia and Herzegovina, and the future generations of Palestinians will live in peace and will live in freedom. And to all world leaders, to all people who can help, to all people who have much more influence than I have, than people of Sarajevo have, I have just one request. I'm begging you, again, not to forget lessons from Sarajevo, not to forget lessons from Srebrenica. And please, stop the war. Stop killing the innocent kids, innocent women and people in Palestine.
Mrs. Karić, thank you for speaking to us and for speaking to Al Jazeera.
Thank you.
We ask the question, what is needed in the world? Is that going to be